Welcome to Blind Shovel, an arts and music podcast. I spoke with Mingjia Chen, who's the vocalist and composer who does the wonderful intros for Blind Shovel. This is our first time speaking, and it was a pleasure. Enjoy.
Hello?
Hey, what's up?
Hi. This is Michael. Well, you know you're Michael. I'm Mingja.
What's up?
Is this recording? Is this happening?
Yes. This is the first time I'm interviewing someone I don't know.
Wow.
So that's going to be interesting for me.
Who's that?
You.
So excited. Thanks. Wow. That's funny because, well, yeah, we've never met. We've never talked in
No, we've
real
never talked.
time.
We've never talked. So you're from
Going well
Toronto.
so far. Yeah.
How's that?
Oh, it's great. Well, I guess I was born in Beijing, so that's where I'm from. But I moved to Toronto with my family when I was pretty young, so that's like, I feel like it's home for me. But I live in LA right now, so I don't know where home is really, which I feel like is common for musicians and artists and wandering folks.
Well, where is your family?
My family, part of my family is in Toronto and part of my family is in Beijing. So,
How often do you go back to either?
Toronto pretty often. I was last there in the summer, hanging out with my mom and making music with people there. And Beijing, not for a long time. The pandemic makes that kind of difficult.
Right.
And it's not really a trip you can just kind of go on willy-nilly.
Right.
Yeah, but I'd like to.
So why did you leave Toronto?
Well, I'm in LA right now because I'm doing a master's program. And so I moved here for that. It's my first time living in the States. And it's a blast. I just came home from school and I'm sweaty from biking. And I think I learned a lot of things.
What are you mastering?
Gosh, nothing so far. Supposedly I am doing a master's in music composition. So writing some notes on a page. What are you mastering?
I don't have a master's degree. But I'm more of a generalist, if anything. No. I think it was a gain ultimately.
Yeah.
I like running businesses more than I liked school. I always liked school. But there's something realer, whatever that may mean, about running a business. There's more like culpability, more responsibility. And I don't know. I used to be more daydreamy, but I like not being that. And that's just where I'm at. But have you always been? I know you make art as well. So as a youngling, what did you think of yourself as? Either or?
Ooh.
Or were you not even like
musician versus visual artist?
Well,
I
tend to think that if you're young and you're good at drawing, oftentimes you get validation from that, and you kind of just keep going down that path because that's how you get attention. But were you always creative?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That I really I resonate with that. I remember being a kid. I don't remember much about being a kid. It's probably like a coping mechanism because I was moving so much, but I do remember And I think also people have told me after the fact that I was drawing all the time. And I remember I was just kind of drawing the same. I was always drawing like the same thing over and over. It's like very obsessive. I was always drawing these kind of like anime, kind of like Barbie doll types, but like not because. And they're always wearing some kind of like pinkish purple. But it was always like I would just keep drawing that person over and over. And I remember they had pointy boobs. I'm not sure where. Yeah, very specific cup type. But yeah, I was drawing all the time. I mean, I think as a kid, I didn't really have. I don't know. I was gonna say I didn't really have a sense of like strong identity as like I am an artist or I am a singer or a musician or which I'm like, I wonder if that's actually true. But right now, remembering what it was like to be young, I think I was just like doing things. I was singing all the time. I lived apart from usually like one of my parents, and I would like sing songs to them on the phone, and those are my first compositions.
Was the content about them, or you're just singing songs that were popular and you knew?
No, like they were made up songs. Like I would make them up on the spot, and generally my parents, I think this was mostly my dad. He'd be like, okay, today sing me a song about sunflowers. And I'd be like, sunflowers, la 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 la, love so yellow. And then I would just make up a song. And yeah, we would just do that.
So you're doing what you've always done, effectively. You draw.
Yeah, I started my master's when I was 2.
When you were 2. So how long has it been?
It's been 23 years since I first enrolled.
And what is your goal? Like, do you want to, I just interviewed James. I don't know if you know James. He's friends with Dory, but he took like the songwriter pop route, and he's a singer-songwriter.
Yeah.
And I know Dory's like pretty happy with where he's at, and he's more more like a jazzy route. Obviously, I've heard your intros for the podcast. That's my exposure, but you would be called a jazz singer. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, I did. I mean, yes, because technically that's what I've been trained in. I studied vocal jazz for a while in school. Yeah, but I don't know. The goal is obviously to be a master. But I guess in seriousness, I don't know. I think I just always want to be making something or not even making something, but like living creatively and always creating. Yeah, that wow, so vague, Ming, so vague.
So like that's an understandable goal.
Yeah.
Are there financial obstructions? Like, do you have to figure out how to make money with your skill set? And if so, how do you do it?
Yeah, being an artist is like the most expensive thing in the world, I feel like. But I guess that's also why I feel like I don't have a specific, like, this is my goal, is to do this one thing, because I feel like being able to do a lot of things, like, I enjoy having a lot of gigs happening, and that's a way to sustain myself financially and, like, emotionally and spiritually, and, like, being kind of game to do whatever is needed. Like, want to make want to sing people's names for a podcast? Sure. Want to like write something for my album? Okay. Like want to perform my music? Cool. Yeah, I recently just kind of wrapped up this project where I was creating animations for my friend's dance project. And I've never done that before, but it's like, okay, you need animations? Sure. Like, why not? Yeah.
What are the spiritual, you mentioned spiritually fulfilled, but for you, what's the connection between creativity and the spiritual?
Wow, what a question. I think I'm not I'm not even particular. I'm not a religious person. And that's actually something that I've been thinking a little bit about, and then I forget to think about it because I think the world makes it kind of inconvenient. At least the communities that I'm in, where there's always a million other things to think about before God or before, what have you. But I feel like I do feel like it's important for me to feel like I have some kind of purpose outside of myself, and kind of both an awareness and a recognition and hopefully some kind of connection to something that's just like more. And I feel like music, as cheesy as that might sound, like it is that for me in some ways, because I feel like religion, so much of the religious stories, right? Like it just feels like a giant metaphor for like the way of things, like as an explanation to like how things work and like what the world is like and how it turns, and that I feel like is music to me, because every time I feel like I get closer to music, I'm like, oh, I'm learning something about world, life, people.
So the process of music making, or art making as well, I assume?
Yeah, I think with art, like I feel like my relationship to music is actually quite different than my relationship to a lot of other creative forms. Because I feel so comfortable in the art form. Like I've devoted so much time to it and really studied it that I feel, and not that you have to do that to feel free in any kind of like form of art, but I feel like I interact with it in a different way, because in a way there's so much. The more that you can do, the more decisions you kind of have to make. Whereas in visual art and in like writing words, or in like whatever thing that I'm interested in that given weekend, I'm kind of like, well, I can only do it this one way because I don't know how to do it another way. So I'm just going to do it this way. And it's a lot more intuitive. Whereas with music, I feel like it's gotten past that point of intuition now, where it's kind of like, oh shit, I actually kind of have to make decisions about things now. But yeah, I feel like it's not even so much about creating. I actually feel like the less I'm creating, often the more I can kind of clearly see and learn about the art, which is maybe like a separate thing. But
you said the less you're creating the music.
Yeah, like I don't know. I think being a professional musician kind of like sucks sometimes because like, and you know this as well, like art is not meant to be capitalized upon. money is great and we love that because we need it to survive, and therefore like having people monetarily value what we contribute, it means people value that we stay alive as artists. But like the idea of music, like it just like doesn't make sense in capitalism. So to be able to say like, I love doing this thing, I want to do this as my way of being a person, and it means that I have to sell it and I have to think about money, like, is so hard for me.
Yeah, it's a very complex topic. I don't know what my opinion is on the relationship between art and capitalism, because it isn't clear to me what structure produces. I mean, it seems like a lot of capitalist societies have very good art, and a lot of societies that try to operate outside of that, obviously authoritarian ones, didn't have art or were very repressive. So I don't really know. It's hard to know what commodification means in respect to like what it's quantifying. It's certainly an awkward relationship between art and money, as the art world is very good at showing the music industry as well.
Yeah.
When one averts their eyes from those things, I think there's a beautiful simplicity to. I do feel that like the artists and musicians I know who are competent and driven have found a way to keep making it, and that's a good thing. The ones I think were lazy or not quite there, they had to move on to more financially stable things. And there are exceptions, of course, but I think if you really want it, you do find a way to work within any given system. I mean, you could be thrust into any system and find the pros and cons. I think they're always going to have challenges. Like I said, I don't know what the ideal fertilizer for art is. In fact, sometimes it seems like the most sensorial environments do produce great art. It's just a lot of people don't get to express themselves.
Yeah, which is like kind of a shame, like I agree. I think like the human spirit, it's just like people are so amazing that generally art will be made. Like there's always going to be great artists no matter the environment. I'm just like, well, why does there need to be such a harsh, like I think about the term lazy too, because I'm a Capricorn, so I think about productivity a lot.
Okay, I didn't know that. I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, well, now you know me. Now you know everything you need to know about me. But yeah, like I just even the term like laziness. I think about that in context of like being an accountant or like being a food vendor or being a janitor or like a secretary, like whatever job, right? And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, you want to be doing a good job, but for a lot of other jobs, it's like you kind of have this freedom to be whatever kind of worker you want to be, as long as you're not doing such a terrible job that it's like now you're like that you're not doing it, and then it's like, okay, you get fired or like it's not working for you and then you have to figure something else out. It feels like, at least in the music world, maybe it's actually totally the same all across the board, but like in the music world, it's like you have to be working against every possible thing and then you will prevail and make art. It's like, well, I want to hear what the lazy artist has to say. Like, I want to hear, like, it also, I feel like that type of environment creates a very specific type of art, which, like, not to say any type is better or worse, but it's like, I'm interested in a variety of things. Like, I'm interested in the artist that makes one record every 20 years as opposed to like every year, like I feel like that creates a different sound, that creates a different energy. And like right now it's just like not really possible for people who are not like total like type A people to like have a have a life in this thing unless you're also working like 5 other jobs, which people also make that work. And I'm like, whatever.
I think for me, the appropriate analogy is, if you're an artist in the sense you're talking about, you're not really a employee. You're actually a owner. And whenever you own a business, it is much more like what you just described, which is like, it's all incumbent upon you to make it work. And I think if that reality was hammered home a little more clearly in art school and music school, like if you want the employee mentality where you can be a little more lazy and there's less time devoted to the thing, there are jobs like that. You might make music for commercials or, just work within a bigger structure, maybe in the film industry or something. There's that, even though those people work a lot as well. But I think the fact is it's a very demanding, I don't know about Capricorns per se, but for me, like, it's simply, if you're given a gift, you're indebted to that which gave you the gift to make as much and as beautiful of things as you can. I just refuse laziness as a mode. I think there's people who could put out one album in 20 years, but the whole time they're working and they're really, really editing and understanding like, wow, this isn't there yet. That's different. But I personally cannot encourage laziness, because I do feel like, what's the saying? Idle hands are the devil's playthings. I find that to be.
I've never
find that true.
Amazing.
It's true. It's when we aren't focused and working. And like, there's a distinction, right? Like making art, calling that labor or work is very misleading. Like having to work as a janitor is certainly a different kind of labor. And I can't help but just be grateful for the opportunity to exist within any system that allows me to try to be an artist.
Totally. Yeah. I feel like that's so, hearing that is, it's quite inspiring. And it's also just like kind of a breath of fresh air, because I feel like maybe the way you relate to like work and kind of this like work ethic is so different than how I've been feeling in the last little while. But also I feel like we're talking to each other like a funny time, because I feel that pendulum swinging back around a little bit in the last little while. Like, cause I have a funny relationship to laziness where I don't really believe in it as by itself, and, like, I'm just like, there's always a reason. Like, I just feel like humans were wired to want to be useful and want to like help other people and express ourselves and do the thing that is like do a good job. We all want to do a good job. And when that opportunity is presented to us, we take it, I feel 9 times out of 10. And so when there's a block, there's almost always like, I'm just like, what's the reason here? Like, what is the thing that's stopping you? But investigating that in itself also takes a certain type of drive and like work ethic and like a stick with itness. And I'm thinking about it a lot these days in terms of like imagination, or like it's almost like this stubbornness of being able to see a future where you can do the work, to me is almost more like when I feel like I'm quote unquote lazy, which actually these days, it's funny, you asked to talk and I was like, like this last week, I was like, oh my God, like I have such a turbulent relationship to music and art right now. Like, what am I going to say? And then, and so I've been thinking about this concept a lot of like, maybe it's not so much that I'm lazy. Maybe it's like, I just need to be more imaginative and see this future where the things I need to do, I can do them, and just like have some kind of trust in the unknown and like trust in myself. And that to me is like the work, because then actually doing it, once you feel like you can do it, is actually not hard. I mean,
no.
to a certain extent, but
I mean, no one's been, for me, it's simple. Like inspiration is, I've never been inspired by a lazy activity or person who's mainly lazy. Of course, the most inspiring people are the people who, they are like, you couldn't imagine how something like that could come out of a human. And they know the pain of the activity. They know how difficult it is, but they make it look easy and they make it look flawless. I think in contrast to laziness, like it is true that I do believe capitalist societies struggle with the genuine idea of rest. And even like in a biblical sense, like there's a reason rest is a full day. And when a society becomes all about productivity, it loses rest and it loses play. And if an artist loses those things, there are serious repercussions. So it's kind of like, how do you exist within a system of that nature? Now, I think that's different than lazy. Lazy for me is only negative. Rest is beautiful and necessary.
Totally.
Now, there's also fear of failure, which is much more common, the deterrent of art making, than laziness, I think.
Yeah. To me, I feel like those two things go, like, I feel like they're the same in a way, because I'm like, I can't imagine somebody wanting to be lazy if they knew that they were going to succeed. Like, obviously you would do the thing that you want to do and contribute what you want to contribute if you believed that it would be what you want, and I totally agree with the thing you said earlier and about like rest. And I wonder if, to me, like the opposite of laziness is not productivity. Rather, it's almost the opposite of that, which is like diligence, and that to me, that's like so different than the kind of like, I'm going to work and make stuff all the time and never stop and make 5 million albums and like, you've
been like this. You've had periods of this kind of tenacity.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I feel like that's something I struggle with a lot is kind of always being like, go, 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 go. And something I've been really enjoying is being very diligent and kind of like strict with myself about like, well, Ming, you said you were going to rest today and you could keep going, but like, just go lie down. And that has actually been a really joyful discovery period for me of like, oh, I can just chill and I don't have to earn it. And I don't have to, like I read this really amazing line a couple of days, I can't remember where, but it was like somebody said, like feeling like you need to earn love is like taxing oxygen. And I mean, think about that. It's like resting is kind of like showing care and love to yourself. And this idea that it's like, okay, I've worked enough. Now I can rest. Like, no, I mean, you got to do what you got to do. You got to take care of business. But yeah, like, and I've been really excited about being more diligent about, kind of tending to both like the yin and the yang. And I actually find like when I allow myself to take a full break, it's actually the most creative time. I'm like, oh, all those things that I was struggling with, like I just needed a nap. And now it's and now it's chill. Now I know what I need to do. Which again,
yes.
Not the reason to rest. That would, I'm not resting so that I can go create more, but it does. It's
well, that's a good point, actually. Yeah. If rest, only occurs in relationship to productivity. In other words, it's the like way to restock the fuel of productivity, then it ceases to be the thing it should be, which is just rest itself. Now, I have a very paternal view of the world. I just always have. I was also raised Roman Catholic, which is fairly paternal. So I admittedly don't. Those kind of more maternal notions of like I deserve love or something just because I exist. I don't. It just like doesn't compute in my robot brain. But I respect it. I completely understand it. I think somehow for me, it's a mode of exhaustion that leads to the like breakthrough. You know, it's like. Because I think that works as well, right? Like I get you go take a shower, your mind's not on the idea, boom, it pops up the correct thing. I also think there's like when you're working out, it's so exhausting. You suddenly break through to the next thing, the second wind, and it feels like a whole new. I don't even understand what happens there. It feels like you're reborn. But why are you if you're simultaneously in this resting period, why are you in a tumultuous relationship? I don't.
Wow. That's a good question. Well, I mean, one, I'm still thinking about what you're talking about with like kind of this driving yourself like to a point of exhaustion and letting that be like a new, like that was, I enjoy that. And I do relate to it. It's like work hard, play hard. You know, on the one hand, it's like when you rest completely. And then when you're investigating something, really just like feel it to the bottom of the thing. And okay. You asked about tumultuous. Yes. Okay. Well, the answer is pretty simple. I'm in grad school. I'm in grad school and I'm working and I'm living in a pretty expensive city and I life is just a little cuckoo bananas for a little while. And then,
how much longer will you be in grad school?
Well, it's my second year out of a 2-year program. So I'm talking to you right now with 1 month left of this semester to go. And then I have another one. And then by May, I'll be a master, supposedly. I'll know everything there is to know about music, except the stuff they tell you in doctoral programs. That I won't know, but everything else.
And will you continue to go to school?
Oh, I hope not. I mean,
okay, so you're... there's some ambivalence about school.
Oh gosh, it's one of those. It's like that thing where it's like, you can't. What's the thing? Oh my gosh, I feel like I talk about this in every interview type situation. The flashlight cannot flash unto itself or whatever. It's like I feel like because I'm in it right now, I have all these like big feelings about school.
Yeah.
And then I'm sure once I leave, I'll just be like, oh, that was a thing. It was actually very simple. Like, this is what it is. And I have so many things I love so much about school. And I feel just like every day there's a moment where I'm like, oh, I'm so lucky to be here. Like, wow, I feel so inspired. And there are also some things where I'm like, get me the hell out of here. Like, what am I doing?
This is like there's a profound saying involving a flashlight.
Yeah, it's that thing where it's like when you're in it, you can't see it clearly, you know?
Well, in a sense, I mean, I never quite, I don't know. There's like a very clear philosophical way to talk about this that I don't recall, but there's an aspect where it's true, right? Like if one is in love, there's a certain perspective on love. And then when one is out of it or looking at two people in love and you're like, how the hell are those people in love? That's a true perspective. So it's not like you're blinded by it. I think that ambivalence people feel about school, I do believe says something about the structure of how we go about education at the current time. I know when I was in school, I was a bit of a brat. So Ultimately, I should have just been grateful, right? It's like, I'm here, I'm doing this thing. I might as well be grateful. It's a luxury in some sense. But I was very fed up with, like, I don't know, just the way things were being taught. I thought I was better than people. I was better than some of them. That was obvious. But I wasn't as good as I thought. And I don't think I had the maturity to take the opportunity correctly. I will never go back. I can say that with confidence. I think you just learn so much more by navigating in there's no bumpers like in a bowling sense. Like if you, once you leave that, you're going to have to learn how to make money, and that's going to be fun. It's very fun.
Yeah, it is fun. It's interesting. I never thought I would do grad school. You know, I did my undergrad in Toronto, and then I was just working and hanging out and being a person and like teaching and singing and writing. And then the pandemic happened, and I was like, well, I had always kind of toyed with the idea of like going somewhere to really study what I want to study and just get like really good at something and not worry about anything else, and just really dedicate myself to like the really nerdy things that I want to dedicate myself to. And but it was always kind of like, oh, maybe one day that would be fun. Like I had never really given it a lot of thought, and then all of a sudden, like, you know, I was just like, fuck it, maybe I'll apply for places. And then I think she sent me a picture of her cat. Oh, cute. Okay, anywho. Yeah, so then I just applied to a bunch of random places and chose the place that was from where I...
Why the furthest?
I think... I don't know, I thought of, like... Grad school is such... Being in school at all is such a strange, amazing, rare opportunity, because it's like you get placed in this kind of like built-in community and this little like hub, and you're just planted there. And it's like, well, here you are, you know. And also I think thinking about like traveling, and I'm really drawn, or at least at that time, now I'm a little tired, but back then I was like really drawn to like living in a bunch of different places that I'd never lived before, and being like, well, I've never lived on the West Coast, like, and those types of moves are hard, but with school it could be less hard, because it's like, I know I'm gonna come here and there's a thing for me to do, there's already people for me to meet, and it could be a really good opportunity to experience something unknown. Because otherwise, like, it's like, okay, I could move somewhere totally different for grad school, or I could move somewhere totally different for a job, but being a freelancer, like, that's, you know, like I don't really know how that would work. Or I could just move somewhere because I'm like, on this day, I'm just gonna pack up and move, which sounds really hard, you know? So I knew that, yeah, it just feels like a really special opportunity to do something wacky.
Okay, so it's wacky. It's a wacky decision.
It's a wacky decision. My first time stepping foot like in LA was to move here. I'd never been here before. And yeah, it was weird. And then it became, well, it's still weird. It's still weird, but in a very enjoyable way now. I'm enjoying the weirdness, for sure.
Yeah, what's the contrast like between LA and Toronto?
Oh my gosh. It's, I don't even know. I feel like, well, the roads are wider here. People use Fahrenheit instead of Celsius.
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
And there's no snow. And And more tacos.
True. This is irrefutable. Will you continue living there afterwards?
Gosh, I don't know. I think it depends on visa situations. It's also another reason why school is a special opportunity, is because after I graduate, I kind of have to figure something out, how to stay in this country. But I think ideally, I would like to stay here for a little while, and then who knows?
How is it that you came to work with Dory?
There's actually we have a really good meet cute. So I like to browse a website / video sharing platform called Vimeo, and so I was doing that one night. I think I had just moved to LA. It was like within the first month for sure, maybe even the first like week. And I was like watching a bunch of random videos. I think it was just like staff pics or like some recommended like animated short video. And then this video by
Roman,
yes. I remember watching this video and one being like, wow, I love this video, and then two being like, I love the music. And I just had this hunch. I had this feeling. I was like, I think maybe there's a chance the person who made this music lives in LA. Which, I feel like that's a pretty that's a pretty good guess for like people who make music. But yeah, I was like, maybe I'll investigate, like, because I love this music, like I want to see what this person is up to. And then I found Dory's email, and I just was like, hey, I watched this video and I love your music. Like, do you live around here? Like, can we hang out? And then he said yes, and here we are. Now we're pals and we play music together all the time, and we're both making music for this show.
Yes. Yeah. That's fascinating, because I did interview Roman as well, so
yes, that's
tight
right.
Little group.
I just learned that. Yeah, what a beautiful, lovely, incestuous little community we have.
You could put it that way. Yeah. No, I'm very, very fortunate to have the friends I have. Very important to have a peer group that you respect. And honestly, going to school, you can start to establish that. But I have found that when you get to your 30s is when you can really start seeing who's in it for real. And then you can start building like a very clear peer group. I just think in school, you can get faked out and be like, oh, this person's an artist because they're in art school with me. But I don't feel one can make such a claim until they've been out of school for like a sufficient period of time to see if they're self-motivated enough.
Yeah, motivation. It's a funny thing, because I also I fantasize about this sometimes, where I'm like, what if we all just stopped making art? Maybe then people would notice. Because that's also the problem, right? Is like, humans love art. We're just gonna keep doing it because, well, one, it's a mode for survival. Like, we depend on we process things and heal by like making art about things, and so it's always gonna be around. But like, I think about workers who go on strike, and if all the artists were somehow all like unionized, the art union, and we all were just like, we're going on strike, we're not gonna make any more art until Spotify tells us that they're gonna pay us more than like one stinky sock for every million streams. Like, how amazing would that be? But it's just like, we like, and the beautiful, like the painful but beautiful thing is that like, that's never gonna happen because people love art. We're just like, no one's gonna stop making it. We're just gonna keep doing it. There's gonna be less, maybe. There's like eras where there's an abundance, and then maybe like I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, good artists don't unionize. Good artists don't like being in big groups of represented people. I've found, like,
Yeah.
they always want to be on the fringe of things, even if it's a type of medium or form. Like, if you're right in the center, if you're all centralized and unionized, at least from an artist perspective, I feel like you calcify and you lack the mobility creativity needs. Like, I'm working on an art center, so I think about it quite often. Is like, what am I trying to do? Because fundamentally, I don't believe you can make good artists. I don't really think institutions necessarily make artists like appear. They can foster some aspect of them, but I think it's a fallacy that, like, we can make little kids all creative and little artists. And I don't even think it's a good thing personally. I think there are creative kids. They shouldn't be smashed like flies because they express things in a different sense. But there is this weird like fetish with creativity that has popped up that I don't think like the ultimate form of a human is an artist or something. I just think we're spices to, the meat and potatoes that is just like rational, sane people who do pretty mundane things.
Yeah, I totally agree with you in terms of like the art. It's like, it is interesting. Like, a lot of art, not all artists, but like a lot of really brilliant artists have found themselves kind of on the fringe or like on the outside, and that I think offers a type of freedom, whether it's something that the artist has intentionally established for themselves, or if it's just in a situation where they found themselves in, where it's like, because of this situation, you can just give less fucks. Like, or maybe because you give less fucks, then you're in the situation like the chicken or the egg, or where it's like, yes, the art cannot be concerned with the other things. However, I do feel like as just a person or a person in a community, like good, quote unquote good artists, or or I guess any artist not wanting to be part of a union or like some kind of community or like larger kind of identity, that feels like more a statement on the union or the whatever thing or the like institution, or than it is on the artist, I feel like, because
I think art movements tell you a lot about the scale that visual art succeeds at, and most movements are like max 20 people. And it's so weird if you consider it, right? Abstract expressionism is a huge movement that had global influence for many reasons involving the CIA, and that's complicated, but like it was really just like 15 people who knew each other. And I still believe that's how it works. Despite the internet, it's these little concentrated groups of people that truly make the best things. And when the scale gets way too big, and that's what I'm like thinking about with the art center, it's like a higher scale of things. It becomes, something doesn't work, something doesn't vibrate. It's even funny to consider with musicians, is like at what scale in their progression as they climb up to like a stadium sized thing or something, is there like a perfect scale for certain forms and mediums? Obviously, like it seems to me, I don't know much about it, but like jazz or something is architecturally, I don't know if this is correct, perfect for a club, like a small club. And then maybe Coldplay is perfect for a stadium. In fact, David Byrne wrote a book about this. I don't know if you've ever read that. I think it's called How Music Works, but he kind of gets into architecture and the relationship to those things.
It's so, it's so important. Like, the art needs to live in a space. And I actually, yesterday I saw this show where it was this artist who had developed a one-person kind of like theater music thing, and workshopped it into like a 6-person show. And I had seen snippets of a solo performance where it was like very intimate. It was like unamplified, just in this room, just him doing his thing. And I was so moved by it. And then I saw this like bigger production where it was like, they were all mic'd up. It was in this big auditorium. It was like boomy. They felt far away. And it's funny because so much of the text was the same, and so much of kind of, you can argue like the content was the same, but the room just changed everything. It suddenly felt like it was so distant and something was not connecting. And it wasn't really registering that, like, I wasn't having that thought being like, this space or, oh, this, like, you know, like
right
environment. But it was only because I knew I had the previous context where I registered it was because of this thing. So, like, yeah, totally.
It's very delicate. Everything about it is delicate.
Yeah.
But can you speak to the relationship? Like, it's,
yeah.
you know, like, you make art, visual art, and music. And can you speak to how they're similar and how they're different?
Yeah. I think it's all in relationship to me, right? Like how I interface. Like I feel like I'm in no position.
No, go ahead.
I don't think
go
anyone
ahead.
is, but to like talk about the visual art as a form or like music. But to me, I
love a good generalization.
Yeah.
I love a good generalization.
No, y'all. Yeah, I think I
mean, you can speak personally too about it. It's just
I mean, I kind of have to, but
right.
Even then it's hard because I mean, I guess I'm talking to you from my room, and right now I'm looking, I'm kind of in a spinny chair, and I'm spinning. And so half the time I'm facing my desk and half the time I'm facing the wall opposite my desk, which I've kind of turned into this like sticky mind map of a piece I'm writing, where it's a musical piece, but to make sense of it, I have to see it visually. And
like with drawings or words?
With both.
So that's
wall,
very interesting.
Yeah, and like it just helps me. I feel like maybe with art, and maybe it's because I'm less trained in it, and it's so much more I'm more limited in what I can do visually. And that in itself is actually kind of an amazing thing, is because like, well, again, like I don't have to decide what I'm going to do because this is what I have, so I'm going to do that. And then two, like there's this sense of play that I get. It's just it like freshens things up, like when I draw versus when I play, because the kind of ignorance I have with visual art and kind of this reliance on intuition is something that I sometimes miss in my music making. And yeah, like with visual art, it's a lot more simple, like my relationship to it, and it's a lot less heavy and belabored. Like,
is your ego less invested in a sense? Like, let's say you make a bad drawing. Is it no big deal? But if you make a bad song, it's a big crushing blow to your self-perception?
Oh, yeah.
Totally. So, yeah, you have that freedom with the visual. But, it's easy to crave that. But I think that's just the nature of getting good and caring about anything or investing in something, is like the losses are they have more gravity. But I think it's very interesting to use them synergistically. Like, will you make a drawing and then make a song about that, almost as if it's a sketch for the song?
I'm trying to think of if I've made a drawing and then turned it into a song. I've definitely, maybe if not like physically like here is a drawing and then now it's a song, but there's definitely, I think I work visually a lot. Like, so for example, I might picture a scene with like really specific colors, you know, or like some type of imagery, and then that'll be the foundation for a piece of music. Like that happens quite a lot, actually. Yeah, and like scenes from dreams where I'll like dream some kind of imagery that I feel like is really compelling, and then from there a certain mood will inform a song or a piece of music. Yeah.
And what do you feel, you know, sometimes people make art, but they're more connected to music, but they simply are good at art. Do you feel do you gain more fuel, spiritually speaking, from visual or music?
Gosh, I think it has to come from everywhere. I think also because I engage so much with like visual and oral media that it's kind of hard to separate, because one of my favorite art forms, like I love movies and I love, and specifically I really love animated movies. And so that's kind of just like watching a moving painting. Like I love seeing movies that are beautiful and where it's really just like works of art, and like it so happens that a lot of these movies like also have really gorgeous soundtracks, and so it's kind of like this thing that's all working together. And I think a lot about like theatrical musical pieces that have been really moving, you know, or like dance and music where it's like this image combined with this sound, and it's like, oh my gosh. Like yeah, so it's really hard to say, but I like that. I like thinking about the feel. You're like, where does the feel come from? The feel, like,
well, yeah, if you were to name, like, in a simplistic sense, you know, the most influential people, artists in your life, I would guess, because you're more invested in music, that you would more quickly can think of them, right? Unless you're talking about like Miyazaki, who is a good example of having both things very figured out in terms of the music in his films and the animation. But like, are the clear influences you have mostly musical?
I think so. If only just because I feel like I have more expertise, like enough to actually say that they're my main influences. But like if you actually look at like emotionally, I feel like there are a lot of, like, Miyazaki for one is actually like probably one of my main influences. Just like thinking about, like, you know, I don't have every scene of his movies like analyzed, and I couldn't like write you a dissertation on like how he did stuff or blah 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 blah. Like the kind of feeling that I'm left with, and that like the way he tells the stories, I think is something that I'm always like trying to emulate, whether that's like consciously or subconsciously.
So would that manifest as like an album? Like, so obviously you're working on the intros to this podcast, and we can get it. I'm curious to hear the process of that. But
yeah.
Once you get out of school, are you ideally making an album that in some sense produces the awe that Miyazaki would produce with a film, or are you trying to
tall task?
No, that'll take a lifetime.
Yeah, that's never gonna happen.
But it's a goal. It's a goal.
Yeah, I'm like working on so many albums.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I have an album that I'm working on, which actually, yeah, I think about like the animated image, and like illustration and cartoons actually like visually as kind of the emotional world that the music occupies for this album that I'm making right now with a band called Tortoise Orchestra that I play and sing with back in Toronto. And it's kind of a pretty fantastical world that we've painted, which is funny because, it's not like I set out to be like, I'm going to make this thing that's inspired by like these people and it's going to be this. It just kind of happened.
Yes.
Yeah. But that's something that I'm doing. There's like, I don't know, there's always a million things that I'm trying to be doing. Always writing songs for whatever, and then it's like, okay, well, once I have enough songs, that's an album, I guess.
Okay, so it's more like it's a looser process.
Sometimes, not always. I'm also working on a song cycle / theatrical piece, which is very much the opposite. It's like its own thing. It's the piece that's living on my wall right now, where it's like, it is to tell this story. It is for this instrumentation / sound world, and it's very much its own creature, that I feed every couple of days, and we have a conversation. I'm like, okay, so what do you think you're going to be?
Right. Yes, that's the right way to make art.
Yeah.
But in terms of the process for the podcast intros, is that, tell me about that.
Yeah. Gosh, it's so fun. I've sung on 8 so far. And so Dory is so wonderful to collaborate with, and you probably this, but he and he explained this to me. He talked to you about this on the podcast, and I've been thinking about that a lot. Actually, is his philosophy on collaboration, where he really kind of sees it as like role delegating. But when you break it down, the collaboration comes when you add all these individual pieces together. And so for my individual piece, which is the singing part, so he makes the instrumental music. He makes the bed track, or what have you. And then he sends that to me and is kind of just like, you sing something. All you gotta know, it's gotta have this person's name, and that's it. He doesn't give me any direction. He doesn't tell me what to do. He doesn't even suggest. He just like, you go, and I'm like, okay. And so there's this like amazing trust. But I also know he just like, he's got this relationship to music that's so inspiring because it's deeply playful, and you hear that in the music. It comes from a place of like joy and ease and curiosity, and not to say that the process is necessarily easy, but like the feeling that it delivers to the listener is like, oh, this is like it's full of life and it's full of play. And he's got such a deep love for the music, but he takes care of the music through that too. And he's really diligent about that. And, so that's a really nice place to be, where I feel really reassured because he takes care of the music so well that I'm like, oh yeah, I don't have to worry about this. This is going to be amazing. I just have to kind of emulate that. And it's also like low risk because I'm like, he trusts me, and that prompts me to trust myself,
True.
And so I guess more on the technical side, like I was thinking, I was like, oh, this is a lot of names, and these are a lot of people. There's a lot of podcast episodes. Like, how am I going to keep this interesting? Because I really do. I want them to all be different and have their own character. And a lot of that is, I think, easy because the music that Dory sends me, like, often I'll hear it and immediately have an idea of like, oh, he played this, like, let me sing this, like, do, like John, you know? And it's pretty organic, but I've also just created, and this is similar to how I create a lot of things outside of this as well, is I've created a little list of just like ideas or prompts or textures. I'm staring at it right now, actually, because it's on my other wall. That's not my giant piece. And so I'm kind of just going about my day, like gathering and being open to just like little ideas or little textures. And then when I sit down and we kind of do these in batches because they're short. So I imagine I'll be doing like 5 at a time or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'll kind of just go through the list of like, oh, maybe I'll try this idea, or maybe I'll try that idea. And so there are these like tiny things, like, you know, I have written, some of them are just lines. They're not even words. It's like, what if I sang this squiggly line like this? Or what if I sang like dots? Or what if I sang it like zigzags, you know?
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
And then you'll assign it to a name.
Yeah. Yeah. And the name also has like plays a huge role. Like some names, you just say them and it brings out a certain like, you know, like Neve, who's on the show, and Dory, like Bavarsky, like their last name is like, it's just like, I was like, okay, Bavarsky, that's just like a fun thing to say. I just want to chew it in my mouth, like Bavar, and then Alina's like, whoa, and then that idea where it's like, oh, what if I like say it all in one note, but then I just do this big loop on like Bavara, you know?
Right.
And that turned into this kind of funny thing where, if you're listening to this now, pause here and go listen to Neve's episode, I guess, for the first 30 seconds and then come back. And so that's how that happened. And it's kind of fun just listening to the names themselves and being like, okay, what are you trying to tell me? What are these vowels? Where do they want to go?
Right. And now you'll have to sing your own name.
I know. I was thinking.
It's kind of strange.
I know. I was on the phone with Dory after I had sent him the first recordings for these, and we were kind of just debriefing, and he was like, oh, like, yeah, I heard you're gonna get interviewed, you're gonna have to sing your own name, and so I've kind of been thinking about that. It's in a way, it's like the least stressful one, because I'm like, it's just me, it's just my name, you know. If I'm singing the name of another person, I want to make sure that it feels like I don't know, I'm very like, for better or for worse, I'm like product or like end goal driven. Like I want to imagine me singing someone's name in a wacky way and then them listening and being like, oh wow, I've never heard Bavarsky sung like that before. You know?
I think you've succeeded from what I've heard.
Thank you.
In doing so.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I was interested in hearing, is like, yeah, I like the visual of you looking at dots and singing a name based on dots, maybe in like a staccato way or something.
Yeah.
And then there's a zigzaggy way of approaching that, because the fact that you draw and sing must mean your process varies or incorporates that in a way that like a person who just sings might not approach it.
Yeah, it's like different ways it's all just like different containers for the same energy or the same emotion, you know. These days, actually, and this is kind of a fairly new thing, but when I've become really inspired in the middle of a musical process, I'll just turn all the lights off and I'll start like, dancing is not the way to describe what I do, because it just probably, if somebody else, and I try to not picture other people seeing this, but it's probably just me like standing in the middle of my room, like making weird faces and like moving my left shoulder, you know, but like trying to, like, I really enjoy feeling the certain like energy or like spark or fuel or, like what have you, the thing that like drives us to express things, like have that manifest in different ways and in new ways. And I feel like that just brings a different freshness that I love.
Yeah, I mean, to me, drawing is just a way of thinking on paper. It's in the most literal sense. It's just a way to almost like I don't know what they're called, the machines that record earthquakes, but it's just a way to give a visual cue of the way you're thinking. That's at least often how I draw when I'm not doing an assignment, which has an end goal to do that. But that's why I think it could be a useful tool for anyone, is it just allows you to explore things in a way that's more comfortable, since our primary sense is one that is visual.
Yeah.
So it's cool to hear that, how you're approaching what is really an ethereal product, music, with something more concrete, like drawing.
Yeah, and concretizing anything, I feel like it's just so enjoyable. It's fun, and I do that with like, I completely relate to what you're saying about like, it's just like a way to process things, and I think about that with like not just music or like anything, like my thoughts, my feelings, like putting them on a page and making something ethereal, concrete. Like there's something so satisfying and like very healing about it. I don't even know why. Maybe it's just like the human desire to validate and express and feel seen, even if it's like by ourselves. But it's like, oh, I just feel better if I feel this way, and then I draw a line because of it.
Right.
Nothing changed, but I feel good now. Yeah.
Do you have a joke?
Do I have one?
Yeah. Do you possess a joke? This is something I ask often. You have it?
I have a joke.
You see it? You visualize it?
Yeah, it's
okay.
It's more of a riddle than a joke, and it's
that's cool.
I'm gonna tell it in like super fast, like mosquito speed.
And then I have to guess the riddle?
Yeah, you have to guess it.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, here we go. A vampire dies and goes to heaven, and then God, well, this is all over this, but God says, okay, you're gonna be reincarnated. What do you want to be reincarnated at? And the vampire's like, I like having wings and drinking blood. And then so it went back to Earth as a bat, and then the bat died and then went up to heaven, and God was like, what do you want to go back as? And then the bat was like, I really like having wings and then drinking blood. And then so then they went back as a mosquito, and then the mosquito died and then went up to heaven, and then God was like, what do you want to go back as? And then the mosquito was like, I really like having wings and drinking blood. What did the mosquito reincarnate as?
Wow. Even if I'm wrong, that was just a good time.
Thank you. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
God. Maybe I'm just going to wait here and edit this part out where I think. So give me a moment. I want to get this right.
Okay. I can be the hold music. Just tell me when to stop.
Okay.
Do, 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 do. I guess I never sing your name. I guess
one day someone
show.
No, someone is going to interview me one day. Maybe it'll be Neve.
Yeah.
So we'll
for this show?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so exciting.
All right, so let me get this. We got vampire down to bat, down to mosquito.
Yeah.
Wings
and blood.
Wings and blood. Smaller than a mosquito. That's
Oh, would nothing necessarily be smaller than
I mean, just for the sake of cyclical continuity, I'm saying it doesn't make sense to me, but back as a vampire? What
No. Imagine if that was the answer. That'd be such a terrible riddle.
Oh, it'd be horrible, but I don't. It would be terrible.
I mean, I guess it would be funny in its own way because of that.
No, it'd be hacky. It would be hacky. But...
Yeah. I wouldn't.
All right, should I try? Should I try again?
You know what we could do? What we could do is I can tell you what it is, and then we can cut that out, and then we can record you saying, "Is it this thing?"
I'm willing to do that as long as I could kind of give a hint that I wasn't lying about it to a very perceptive listener.
Okay. Well, should I tell you what it is?
God, it's pissing me off because
it's really random. You don't have to. Once you hear it, you'll be like, okay. I feel like I've hyped it up too much.
All right, I give up.
It's a pad, like.
Oh yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
It's got wings and it.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And in all fairness, in degrees of sentience, it actually makes sense. But I was thinking about scale. But
I know. I was it's not smaller than a mosquito. That would be not good for.
In a sentient sense, it becomes an object. So
yes,
it's a horrible thing to wish to be reincarnated as, but I guess God was just playing a trick on the mosquito.
Yeah, maybe. I guess there's a rule where you can't come back as the same thing.
That's implicit. Yeah.
Yeah. That would.
Well, that was great. I like that more than a joke. Maybe I'm going to ask people if they don't have jokes for riddles. I'm ashamed to not have gotten it. I have to keep this unedited.
Yeah. The listeners deserve to know the truth.
Yeah. Damn it. Okay. Well, good talking to you. I got to go to the Elks Lodge to meet my brothers now. So
fun.
Yeah, it's going to be very fun.
Wow. Enjoy. I'm going to take a nap.
There it is.
4 hours. It was so lovely, and I mean, still is right now. So lovely talking to you. Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah, good to meet you.
All right.
Have a
Bye.
good night. Bye.
Thanks again. Music by Dory Bavarsky and Mingjia Chen. Next up, we have Dan Bortz.